Hey there, everyone. This is Dave Andrews, and I'm back again from the healing islands of Hawaii. Specifically, I'm in Kauai and in Princeville, and you can see behind me it's kind of a beautiful, rainy day and kind of mysterious. I love these kind of days, and haven't had many of these out here, which I'm not complaining about because it's been stunning. However, I just wanted to shoot this video for you today, really all about some content I want to share with you and give to you. For those of you that watched the last video, thank you very much. And again, this is Dave Andrews, author of the 30-Day Sobriety Solution. Those of you probably found your way through that book and through my association with best-selling author Jack Canfield. And so what I wanted to do today first is kind of just do a quick summary of the last video in case you missed it. And really, I shared a lot of kind of hopefully hope and inspiration from the last video around a couple key concepts. And one of the big ones was this idea that a lot of us have achieved some pretty big goals in life, some pretty amazing achievements. And we've done those under some various methods and ways that really honored ourselves and our skills and our strengths and our talents. And a lot of times what we do when we try to get sober and we try to work on these things that are really, these addictive behaviors, is we get taken down this pathway of completely different way of approaching it as we did our goals. Meaning we will drink once and then we'll give up and say, I'm a loser drunk, or I can't do it, or I'm never going to figure it out. Yet any big goal you've achieved in your past has been very likely the pushing past and overcoming setback after setback. And so, the way we've approached our goals in the past is often very different than the way we're trying to approach one of our biggest goals of all time, which is really our sobriety. And one of the best ways to access and become sober is really figuring out your best self, your true self, your purpose on this life. And we'll talk a little bit about that in this video, around this story and around your story and growing up. And I'll share with you my story and how my story shaped so much of my life, and how when I figured out how to shape and reshape my story and review it in a different way, I was able to really free myself from drinking. And it's something that I've been able to do and give back to so many others in my pathway down this road to helping. And just so you know, I got my crystal with me. It's been a lucky crystal I got here. And then this is another Bose headset, just so it's a Bluetooth, so you can hear me easier. So it looks funny. That's what it's there for. And really, let's just dive right in. And so there are three main things I'm going to share with you in this video, three kind of big topics. One of them is your story and how to figure out your story and what that means and how to change it and change your story, because that's part of what's keeping you stuck in drinking and that drinking cycle. The other one is around this concept of some of the things that have connected and that we've learned in a group like Running Insider Circle, which many of you might know. I'm now 3 years into that, 7 groups, over 150 people. Been one of the most rewarding and powerful experiences of my life. And what I've learned from that are things that aren't included in the book for the most part. And so I'm going to give you some of that today as well. And the third concept, really excited about, is this concept called what I call fight and light. And it's actually acronyms. And these acronyms, on the fight side, you'll be able to quickly identify how you get yourself in sabotage and struggle. And then on the light side, really bringing light to who you really are and your purpose, that's the part that will really help free you. And that is kind of an acronym I created for each, and very powerful and very, very memorable, and really can help you. And all of these are meant to help you in these ways that hopefully will move the dial and get you sober. And all I'm going to give to you is that pure content, and that's really the main purpose of this video. And I'll share with you some stories of people that have been able to benefit from this content. So let's go ahead and dive right in, okay? So the first concept I want to talk about is story, and specifically your story, and I'll share through my story, and the power of story, and the power of how story can move us forward in these beautiful ways, but also how story can get us stuck and keep us drinking and keep us in pain and keep us suffering. And so as you might recall in the last video, I shared how so much of the last couple of years for me has been about dealing with my dark night of the soul, this true experience where, through my divorce and through the pain I experienced, I had to go within and really tap into these resources that I've been given and blessed with to free myself, or they could have taken over and really led me to anything from suicide to just incredible pain, unhappiness, or back to drinking, which is amazing to me. It didn't happen, and yet so beautiful. And what I hope to encourage and inspire you to really see is the power of your sobriety. So my story I'll share right now is really, as for all of us, starts in our childhood. Our childhood lays the whole framework for our whole life. And there isn't any great teacher I know of that doesn't say this and even say in their 70s, I wish it wasn't about our childhood, but it still comes back to our childhood. Certainly how I've seen things as well. And so right now I'm going to dive into my story and share with you what shaped me and then how I had to change it. And so my parents first divorced when I was around age 6 years old. And it actually came through a sequence of events where my dad actually used to be a minister, and I was a preacher, a PK, what they call a preacher's kid, first 5 years of my life, he actually fought for women's rights nationwide to be ministers, and that was not accepted. And so he actually got national media and then was removed. And so that changed. That was the first change in life. Not a big deal for me. We ended up moving cities, moved to Cleveland Heights, but that's where my dad came out of the closet. And so in the 70s, he came out of the closet gay. And for those of you that are aware or old enough to know what the 70s were like, it was not remotely okay, and still isn't in a lot of ways today, but it's very different than it was then. And so all I knew, though, was my dad was gay. No big deal. And I literally remember him explaining to me, and I said, so you like boys instead of girls? And he's like, yeah. I'm like, oh, all right. Because I didn't know any different. And so the divorce was incredibly painful. I went from seeing my dad almost every day to seeing him every other week and every other weekend. So the first part of my story starts around that, which is really the sense of abandonment and rejection. The sense of abandonment and rejection is one that's, still is with me today. And so I have to be very careful. If I'm starting to pick up a vibe of abandonment and rejection, then I can push people away. I can start acting out. I can put up my own wall and step away. And so that's one I'm always reminding myself of, because that fear is so deeply rooted in who I am, that's been an important one for me to really acknowledge and give space to be and be okay with that. And then also learn that I don't have to respond the same way I learned to as a kid. And so what I learned to as a kid were several things. The first stage I went through out of divorce was really acting out and rebellion. And rebellion can be great. Rebellion actually can be really good. A lot of women don't ever learn how to be angry inside of their own family. And if you don't learn how to be angry, what you really don't learn is boundaries. You don't learn how to take care of yourself, to put your needs first. And so that's something that a lot of women that come in really experience and learn. They really, because they never got angry, they never learned out of boundaries, and they recreated that boundaryless experience in their marriage or in their life as an adult. So mine, though, was different. I did act out. It did help me. However, what happened in 5th grade was really powerful and a big shapeshifter for me. I told a friend of mine in 5th grade that my dad was gay. He then shared the whole class that my dad was gay. At that time, I didn't really know anything was wrong with it. I knew there was some secrecy around it, but I wasn't sure to what extent. And what I came to find out, though, was it wasn't accepted at all, because he used it to make fun of me, and then other kids made fun of me. And highly, highly powerful part of my story, because at that moment I said, okay, my family is not normal. I'm not okay. My dad's not okay. And if my dad's not okay, I'm really not okay. That's really this experience. And so that was something that really shaped me. And that shame, alongside my mom bad-mouthing my dad my whole childhood, really had this powerful influence, because as a kid, all we know is when one parent bad-mouths another is that we are also broken because we're part parent, part mom, and part dad. And so I had a lot of shame about who I was, and role modeled and learned from my father and my mother. And then in 5th grade, I had shame around who my dad was as far as being homosexual, and then what that was like for me and what that meant for me. So I became obsessed with hiding it and holding that in, because I in that experience, I learned that it would be used against me and I'd be hurt. And so what also happened in 5th grade, though, was really powerful, is I had a parent-teacher conference. And this one was specifically held just for me and my mom and dad. And my mom and dad both came. The only time I can recall in my life where my mom and dad came to a conference together. And it was a conference because I wasn't doing well. So I wasn't doing well in school. And then she asked me what I want to be. And I said, I want to be a veterinarian. And she said, well, you're not smart enough. And that stuck with me. And so in essence, like, regularly I'd be like, oh, I'm so mad. Why would she say that? How could she ever say that to a kid? Difference is for me, it actually served me in a weird way, because what it did is it put a bit of a chip on my shoulder, and I set out to prove everyone wrong. And through the desire of proving everyone wrong, that's maybe a wrong energy. Not maybe, it is a wrong energy around that. But it's a heck of a lot better energy than hiding out, running away. It was at least moving me in a direction of achievement and getting success and building, stepping stones to really get myself out of being this rebellious kid to being a studious kid that really achieved. And through that achievement, I started getting some of that significance that I was really hoping for, which is like, all I really craved was my parents' love. But because, they were working through their stuff, never really felt like I was feeling some sense of self-worth. And that stayed with me for a long time, really. Only until recently, I would say I've stopped using achievement as this way to feel good about myself, because it's a really unhealthy pattern that's a constant chase. And so, however, at the very least, that experience really shifted my experience for me and really puts some new rules that were really deeply seated and around being able to achieve. And so, and when I do it in a healthy way, which I still do, which I try to practice mostly today, it can be really amazing. And so then move forward to 9th grade. So in 9th grade, I heard I could get a varsity letter for playing on the tennis team. And because they're a really bad tennis team, not many players, and so I tried out for it. And then I came to my surprise, I wasn't able to make the team. And no big deal. I wasn't, a good player, so that made perfect sense. But what happened was I fell in love with tennis. And it really just became my life. And so I lived down the street from a country club, and I was in an apartment complex, so I was kind of like, and in the country club I was kind of feeling, felt a little cooler, at least I got a job there, and I was playing tennis every day. And I played tennis pretty much every day through middle of my senior year. I think I missed maybe 2 days, literally. I playing Christmas Eve, did a fundraiser once where we played for 24 hours straight, and things like that. And so what happened though is that as I fell in love with the sport, I got about 3 months in and I started improving pretty decently. And then this amazing woman came into the country club to teach, and she had been as high as 8th in the world for women's. And she said, I'm going to change a lot for you, and you're going to get a lot worse, but you're going to get a lot better. And he said, you just have to trust me. I said, okay. So I trusted her, got a lot worse, started getting beat by all the people I was beating. And all of a sudden, though, my game started improving faster and faster and faster. And then before I knew it, I was beating the players that I was beating before, but I was beating them in a big way. My game just kind of took off. And what happened was, and it only in reflection I see this, it taught me one of the most important lessons of my life. Don't ever be afraid of learning how to do things the right way, or learning how to find an answer that is quicker, faster, and more applicable, because that's where the real freedom lies. That's when you do that, you can really skyrocket your ability and take off. And for me, having so much riding on my significance and needing to feel, like needing achievement to feel good about who I was, that was like the best possible opportunity for me, because from that moment on, I was never afraid to get worse, to get better. And that's a powerful thing to bring into it and into life. And so actually the next year in sophomore team of my tennis team, I made for singles, and I beat someone that had been playing his whole life and a very good tennis player. And that just made it even more deeply rooted that this stuff works. And that's actually been one of the greatest blessings I brought with me. However, when it's tied to my need for achievement, when it's tied for my shame around who I am, then everything got messy. And so some of these beautiful things that could have been beautiful got real murky, and really alcohol had this powerful role to take over, because I never felt like I knew myself or who I really was. I had all kinds of shame about who I was. One of the things I came to realize with my marriage was that we both connected over one main theme. I hated myself more or less, and she had issues with men. And so that, that was a very compatible experience for us. So why offer this? Your story, whatever it is that shaped you, the biggest things in your life are fundamentally critical for you to understand and see, because when I started seeing my story, I was able to start changing. I was able to start taking what really worked for me and running with it, and leaving behind the things that didn't work for me, like constantly chasing achievement and constantly always going for the next place where I could win or be the one recognized, and then in that place I would feel good. But how I felt was temporary, about as temporary as you could possibly imagine. And so it never really worked. But when I understood that, I was like, wait a minute, okay, I love learning. I love improving upon things. I love making a difference. And if I can hold on to those parts of my traits and let go of this idea of I am enough, I have to win to be enough, and there has to be a loser to be enough, when I can embrace this win-win-win mentality, which actually, like Insider Circle, for those of you that don't know much about it, Insider Circle really is to me this win-win-win program that's been amazing, because it's amazing for me, the participants, and then even as you graduate, you volunteer, and you can be a volunteer and really continue your journey. And so this kind of win-win-win where there doesn't have to be a loser. That was one of the things I really realized. No one has to lose. And when I realized that, I could start enjoying this pathway to achieving versus waiting to achieve, that changed everything. We'll come back to that a little later in this video. And so what I encourage all of you to do is look at your story. What are the stories and patterns in your childhood that are showing up today? How do they play out? One of the things I see a lot of times with people that come into my Insider Circle program is they had a lot of chaos in their childhood, a lot of things in their childhood that was painful and hard for them. And in that experience of chaos, what we seek as an adult is control, or certainty, really. We seek certainty. We want certainty because because as a childhood, there's so much uncertainty and chaos. Well, we seek certainty usually by seeking control. And that's where we get into a lot of trouble as adults, because we start equating control means no chaos. Control means I'm safe. And it makes sense But the greatest source of pain, one of the greatest sources of all pain, is controlling the uncontrollable. When we try to control how people see us and how people experience us and what their opinion of us is of us, when we try to control all of those things, when we try to, when we try to control our drinking in certain ways, and we try to control our slowing down with alcohol, like coming home and having a drink just so we can turn off, these are ways we've used control in this very unhealthy way. A lot of us also learn how to use control by controlling who we are in this group and that group and with this person and that person, all based off of one desire to be liked and approved. The challenge is that leaves the one person that most wants to be out there in front of people and most wants to be loved and connected not there, which is your true self, the part of you that is really the most beautiful, connected part of who you really are. And that's really what I get to do today. Is I get this amazing opportunity to be here, this gorgeous place, and sharing with you my true self and my desire. And I fought this for a long time. Only in the last year have I come to the acceptance and sharing that I will always do this type of work for the rest of my life. Up until even earlier this year, I always kind of had a little bit of an out. Like, maybe I'll just go back to IT, or maybe I'll go back to doing something else. And I finally said, why would I ever do that? This is who I am, and this is part of the beauty I get to give. The reason why I would do that, though, it's very clear to me, because when you feel rejected, or when I feel rejected or abandoned, or when I feel like I'm not accepted for the work I do, and even my best, and it's my best work, who I really think I am and what I'm meant to do, there's nothing more scary. It's terrifying to honor this part of you that you think is that is really connected to your true self, and then to realize that you could be rejected in that. And that's why a lot of us always go after the second, third, or fourth best thing. And it's taken me a long time to get there and to really accept it. And so I get the pathway. And I just want to offer that to you as far as part of your story and how to look at it and how to change it. And really look at what it is that gets triggered with drinking, that maybe drinking is helping you think is helping you solve. The reality is drinking makes everything worse. It really does. If you really are honest about it, there isn't anything about drinking that's going to improve your life. You think it is. You think it's going to make you less stressful. You think it's your way to relax. You might think it's your way to slow down. You might think it's a way to connect with others authentically. The reality is it's all kind of a facade. And if you really sit down and look at it and actually say, is the drinking helping this experience? And get specific, because the way we tease ourselves and trick ourselves is through these kind of generalizations. We make these general statements like, I need alcohol to reduce stress. Well, take a look at one specific event that makes you stressful, and then tell yourself how alcohol makes that less stressful. Probably not likely. Almost probably not at all likely, because something is happening from that. And there's almost no way you could drink excessively and wake up the next day and be connected and motivated and do work in this really beautiful way. And so, yeah, you might still be able to do amazing work, but it's going to be limited dramatically. And I can tell you from my practice and what I lived in my life, what I've done in my sobriety just baffles me and amazes me and delights me. And I look back at my drinking and I think, wow, you got a lot done drinking. I'm pretty impressive. Nothing in comparison to what I can get done today. So let's move on to number 2. So the second concept I want to share is you're not alone. And I know that sounds cheesy, right? And I know what I experienced when I was drinking, and I thought I was all alone, and there's no way I was getting out. I certainly didn't think people were like me out there that were struggling the same way I was. And I can tell you, you couldn't be more wrong. And one of the most amazing things I've gotten to see is when I created Insider Circle, I based it off a program I did that was really powerful. And the reason I created Insider Circle was true anonymity, yet still real, authentic connection. Because AA, as much as I love what AA can offer in some ways, and certain aspects of it, it doesn't ever feel safe, because for most people, and certainly didn't for me, because you're still going into a room with people that you might know and see. And I even interviewed somebody that I knew from the meetings from AA at once, and it was actually fine. It was actually, all my fears were not realized. It was actually no big deal, and we hired him. So it was interesting, but I tell you, it would have terrified me if I thought that happening before. And so what I came to realize in going to AA, but even running Insider Circle, is we're not alone at all. And if I give people a truly anonymous format where there's not consequences in their life, then we get to heal in our relationships and our experience and let go of all of this kind of stuff that keeps us drinking. And so I think I shared in the last video about this idea that we hurt in relationships, we have to heal in relationship. But it's hard to heal in relationship if there's consequences. So Insider Circle creates these relationship opportunities to really get this mirror back, to see who you are and to seize the possibility. And then when we tie in the volunteers, that really elevates it. However, one of the things that always happens is week 4, after I do coaching calls with everyone, I share all these things in common. And I already touched on some of those in the story. I can tell you there are so many similarities, from how much people drink. Really the common drink of choice is wine these days. Still probably 75% of the people that do Insider Circle are wine drinkers, anywhere from a few glasses of wine to a few bottles of wine a night. There are still liquor and beer drinkers, not like that doesn't exist, but wine has become this really popular method, and especially for women. And in Insider Circle, what's been amazing is just seeing all these people that these women and men that are intelligent and are great parents and great community members and CEOs and high-level executives and doctors and therapists and psychologists and all these professions. Like, I get all these amazing people doing amazing work in the real world, truly doing really beautiful work. And then also these amazing stay-at-home moms that are smart and brilliant and do a great job raising their kids. But the problem is that there's still an experience by all those people that come in Insider Circle that they're never going to get past the drinking, that their experience is other people can't really share it. And not only that, even if they did, there's a belief, of this common belief, that you're never going to make it. And that's partially because what I talked about earlier in the video and yesterday, or the last video, was this idea that we don't approach our goals the same way. However, I can tell you, completely wrong. And so that's what is so amazing when we hear our story in other people. And that's what I've been able to have reinforced over and over again through my life and through the participants' life, is that people come home and drink alone and hide their drinking. People hide how much they drink. People all these people that come in, they have fears around what their drinking means for them, how people will see them, how their business will see them, or how, if it was found out, how this person would like or not like them. All these stories. And so what I just want to bring point is, what story are you telling yourself about why you can't get sober? Because very likely it's not true at all. Matter of fact, it's probably about as false as you can get. But that story has power. And so I really encourage you to look at the story you're telling yourself around why you're not able to get sober, or why maybe that other person gets sober and you can't. And then look at your story and how that ties into your childhood, perhaps, and what your parents taught you. Like, maybe they taught you your needs aren't important. Maybe your mom modeled the fact that, she has to do everything around the house and clean and take care of everyone and never has time to take care of herself. Well, boy, if that was modeled to you, then how are you ever going to, first of all, do enough to get yourself sober, but let alone how would alcohol not play a role? Because if you're taught that, alcohol is probably the only way you give yourself time or permission. And that's part of what we all have to shift, is looking at these stories and how they play out in our life. And so what I can tell you, though, is people have these lights turn on in week 4 when we often share all these commonalities that is across the group, and they're like, and they're like, what? Really? And all I can tell you is you're not alone. And I really hope you take that in, because part of that will help free you. Because when you realize that, and then you also realize, looking in my eyes, I'm being sincere and honest, and hopefully you see that there is another side to all this, and you can have that side. And so that's really the kind of the second overlapping concept I want to share, and it crosses over some other things too, but it is important and valuable for you to really embrace that and look at that. And now let's move on to number 3. So the third one I briefly talked to the start of this video is the concept of fight and light. And they're acronyms, and I'll go through what each means. However, let's kind of look at it just in general. Fight. So many of us go through our daily life fighting things. We fight how people see us. We fight, with other drivers. We fight our shame. We fight who we are. We fight all these kind of ways we just resist. Another word for it would be resistance. We just kind of resist changing. We resist, we fight even our desire to be sober. Like, we actually say we want to get sober, then we really fight it. We actually tell ourselves stories where we are keeping ourselves stuck. We have all these ways of fighting. But really, when we get to shine our light and really learn how to shine our light from our true self, let our true self be our beacon, our guide, and then let light shine through all the muck and murk that made us the drinker that we are, that the problem part of us, the part of us that really isn't serving us, but we have to still own and integrate and work through to release. When we can shine a light through that, that's where magic happens, because that light shining through is really just your true self, your purpose, your best self, and that can change any behavior, any pattern that you don't like. It has that power. And there is no question, I have complete belief that our purpose and our calling and who we really are is, our purpose in this life is to bring that to the surface and allow that to really shine through and share that with others. And when we do that, there's no room for addiction. That is absolutely clear as I get. I spend most of my time coaching people in some ways trying to understand and release their story and then to figure out who they really are, because who they really are is what's going to free them. A great analogy of this I read the other day was about Bill Gates, and so he said, imagine if you were coaching Bill Gates, and imagine so Bill Gates comes in, he wants your coaching, but he has amnesia, so he doesn't remember that he's this kind of brilliant businessman and philanthropist now, however you say that, and so he has amnesia. Would you spend your time coaching him on business tactics, or would you spend your time coaching him on who he really is? And that one just sinks in for me because, of course, we're not going to waste our time with business stuff because we know in his truth and really who he is, he's already amazing at business. So we just have to help him find who he really is. And when he finds who he really is, all that knowledge and just essence of who he really is, that authentic ability for him to move that dial in that way is just going to come out. And so that's what I just want to offer back to you, is that when you remove alcohol and you really start kind of getting into what it is and who you are, then that's where thriving and sobriety, and that's where the desire to be sober is second nature. That's where that lives. Because I tell you, when you are living your purpose and serving others in that way, there is not really room for addictive behavior, because it's too powerful. It's the best high you can ever get when you do that work, and you really see it. It's the change. You see people able to really embrace it and move with it. It's unbelievable. So going back to the fight and light concept, what stands above fight and light, the F and the L, the main kind of what really encompasses the whole thing is F and L, which is fear or love. And so Jack Canfield teaches this, and I love it. And it's such a powerful concept around this idea that every decision we make is based off of fear or love. Meaning, I choose to let love lead the way. I love myself enough to maybe take a chance at something, to try something. I love my kids to model what it's like to try something and show them the power of when you try. Sometimes you can achieve and other times you don't, but regardless, you're giving them permission to kind of be true to their desires and wishes. Versus fear, which is, I'm not going to try that because I'm going to fail. I can't get sober because I've already tried 5 times and it's not working. These are all fear-based decisions. However, if you look past in your life at other bigger accomplishments, you'll realize that the ones you made it past were because you embraced the fear and moved past it. And that comes from love. And so it's not our mistakes that really hold us back, it's our fear. And so our mistakes actually can be beautiful and lessons and amazing experiences. But if our fear stops us from making mistakes, we don't ever get to learn. We stay stuck. And so this fear and love overarches this whole kind of acronym. And so really looking at how you make decisions and asking yourself, is this decision coming from fear or from love? And that can really free some energy up and some clarity up. And so let's move down through the acronym now. I'll go down each side with the F and the I, so fight and light. And so the I stands for either illusion on the fight side or intention on the light side. What does that mean? So illusion is the world we live in sometimes of denial and of not bringing to our awareness these parts of ourselves that if we understand and see differently, we can free. So for example, one of my strengths is my determination, my perseverance, and that can be incredibly powerful in my life. And I'll get up 100 times if I fall down 99. However, that also can be my stubbornness and my inability to listen, or the ways I'll put a wall up. That same determination, that kind of go-getter attitude can get in my way and hurt me from not seeing things the way they really are. And so that's an example of an illusion, a way that we kind of tell ourselves different stories. So what we really want to do is try to figure out what is true and really move past denial and not compare ourselves to other people, because we're often comparing to either elevate us or put us down. And so we can all find 100 people that drink more than us, right? And we can all find 100 people that drink less than us if we really want. But however, why are you using that in the first place? Likely it's one way or another, to beat yourself up and make you feel like crap, or to tell yourself you don't have a problem. Neither of those are true. And so that's illusion. But on the other side is intention. Intention is something I've really embraced over the years over goal setting. Now, I love goal setting, don't get me wrong. However, intention to me really helps me remind myself that it's the moving towards the intention that I really want to do, the beingness of that. So if I have an intention to thrive in sobriety, then that feels very different to me than achieving a goal of thriving in sobriety, because instead of having a destination point, there's a beingness that exists on a day-to-day basis. And so when we set intention for our life about who we want to be, how we want to show up, how we want to be experienced, what we want to offer, model maybe to our children or family members, it's very different in my experience. And so I would encourage you to look at what intention you set. And so the way I learned this was, Oprah Winfrey did the introduction to the book, The Seed of the Soul by Gary Zukav, and that on the 25th anniversary. And that book's amazing, but she talked about the whole thing of when she set intention around what it is that she wanted, everything changed for her. Her whole model of business and the way her shows did change in this dramatic fashion. And so, and when she said that, it hit home in a big way. And ever since then, I've really been embracing it, and I love the concept. So moving forward, now we're down to the G for the fight and light. So the G on the fight side is greed. So greed is really this more mentality that is so deeply rooted in, especially at least first world countries like the United States, but can also show up in all kinds of ways. We get greedy in love, thinking that like they have to love me so they can't love somebody else. We get greedy in what we have and then comparing it about our house, our career, our income level, our status on where we live, our number of friends on Facebook. All these things are really based on kind of this greed, or a story probably that we're telling ourselves about what it means if I don't have this job or this salary or these friends. And it's all this incredibly destructive pattern that keeps us living in shame and disappointment. And in that shame and disappointment, alcohol, again, has this major role that it can play in our life to free us from that. And so we have to really move past illusion to get to the truth and see who we really are, what we really want, and really connect to that. And on the other side of the G then would be then gratitude and really appreciating all we have. So there isn't anyone watching this video that probably doesn't have a lot to be grateful for. In my experience, I don't know anyone that wouldn't, as being alive and having a body and a mind, but if you're in the United States, the freedom we have and these things that we have that we take for granted that others don't. So one of the things we teach in Insider Circle right out of the gate is the gratitude reboot. And it's really these several different concepts that come together around how to really, truly take in the appreciation for what you have in life. And the reason it's so critical is until we appreciate what we have, we can't move beyond it. We often try to take a different approach. We'll fight the parts of us that we don't like. We'll push them away. We'll compartmentalize them. We can't do that. It's because it's us. We have to integrate it. We have to accept it. We have to appreciate and love our addicted part of ourselves. And actually, if you think about it, the addicted part of yourself probably has done some great things, helped you achieve some things that you're pretty proud of. And so that's why that's this whole duality of life. So with gratitude, when we're really able to take in that gratitude and love us for who we really are, recognizing and acknowledging that these principles that we think are bad or we don't like about ourselves actually have a polar opposite attached to it. As I talked about with the whole idea of perseverance and determination and stubbornness and how that plays out, it has in its opposite the exact benefits to us. And so if we try to compartmentalize and push away our pain or certain parts of us that we don't like, then what we're really doing is pushing away the opposite of that too, which is usually something pretty beautiful or special. So when we really get grateful and when we start looking at life as more of an opportunity to succeed and to be happy versus a threat to our happiness, that's when we can really free ourselves. Because a lot of people look at quitting drinking as a threat to their happiness. They think if I don't drink, I'm not going to be happy. It's actually the exact opposite. Drinking is what's going to make you incredibly happy and going to help you be stable, all these other beautiful things. And so let's move on to H. And H on the fight side is hiding out. And similar to losing some other things, with hiding out is very specific. So a lot of us drinkers would hide our drinking, and hide how much we drink, and hide from others, and never really tell the full story. Always going to keep part of us buried inside, telling ourselves a story that if I share that part about me, I'm not going to be liked, I'm not going to be approved. The ironic part is that we are, as Running Ground says, in the most medicated, obese, in debt society in the world. And so we are surrounded with addiction. We are surrounded with obesity. We are surrounded with people in debt. We are surrounded with all, you look at every addiction, you look at all these different addictions in our society. There's struggle and pain everywhere. And sometimes my heart sometimes my heart aches when I think about how much pain and suffering there is in this world and how much we really don't have to have as much of that pain and suffering. But the reality is it's there. And so part of what we want to do is really just stop hiding out and realize that, again, we're not alone. And through that, not being alone, we not only can help ourselves, we get to help others. Because when we show up with our authenticity and our truth, that is a message for somebody else that they can receive. And it's really beautiful. And that's why in Inside Circle it works so well, because that part is so fundamental. And so the opposite of the other side of the age is the whole concept of hope. And so part of what this video right here, these videos have been, and part of what AA does great is providing hope.
Because I know when I went to AA meeting the first time, and I sat across from people telling stories similar to mine, and they didn't look any smarter or different than me, but I knew they weren't lying, even though what they were saying was hard for me to believe, because I didn't believe they were actually sober, let alone as happy as they seemed to be. But when I finally saw that I had hope, all of a sudden I had power of hope playing out for me. So hopefully that's something you'll be able to see. But that's part of why in Insider Circle we create a whole volunteer tribe. That is, after you do the program, or the 12-week program, you can then sign up as a volunteer at no cost, and you get to give hope to others and really provide that hope, but also continue your journey, because changing a lasting behavior like this takes time to really have it rooted and changed, and it takes relationship, as we talked about. So that's the H part. And then we get a last part, which is T. And on the fight side, T stands for temptation. And I first heard this used as temptation by Michael Singer in The Untethered Soul. Temptation is this incredibly powerful concept of like how we tell ourselves the story of alcohol freeing us, drugs freeing us, food freeing us, whatever it might be, that is giving us that. It's this temptation for seeking freedom from our pain and suffering through ways that aren't ever going to help us long term. Whether it's antidepressants, whether it's sex, whether it's alcohol, whether it's getting another certification or another degree, something a lot of people love, right? It's always this constant game of like being tempted to do something, to hide away from emotions or hide away from the experience, and really to not grow, and it keeps you stuck. And so when we can let go of temptation and realize that when we let go of temptation, this real beauty can be there in life, that we get to actually really serve ourselves and others. That's the amazing part, which is really transparency. And so opposite temptation really allows us transparency or vulnerability. And so one of the things I've come to find time and again is that the more I'm open about really who I am and the things that I've always felt make me broken or make me less than, I realize the moment I share them, almost every time, someone's like, thank you for saying that. Like, I always judge myself for that. So hearing you say that makes me feel free. And that's really this experience we all seek, right? Is that we want to be truthful. We want to be honest. There's nothing more any of us want is to be vulnerable and share our truth. But it's terrifying to think that if we do that, we'll be hurt. And for all of us, if not most of us, if not all of us, that's rooted in our childhood. In our childhood, we learn to be carrot and stick. We often learn to be and act like this person or that person in this situation or that situation, so we'd be approved or liked, or we'd be accepted. Or maybe we learn from our sibling who got amazing grades, that if I get great grades too, then I'll grow up just like they are, or whatever story it might be. And so this transparency is so freeing, because what we've been telling ourselves is completely wrong. True, authentic connection happens through this vulnerability. And yeah, when you're vulnerable and you're truthful, some people aren't going to like it and want to be in your life. That's great. Let them go. Because the people that are there and the people that do care about your vulnerability and care about you, that will be life-changing. And those relationships will be the most empowering and beautiful relationships of your life. And you can have some of those in your life right now. My only encouragement, if you do, is honored enough to share your pain and challenging and suffering with them. Because every time I do coaching calls at start of a group, one of the most common experiences I have is have you ever shared this with me? No. Has anyone ever shared something with you about them that's similar to this? Yes, a lot of have. And what did you do with them? Did you judge them? Did you blame them? Did you tear them down? Of course not. You felt honored they would share it with you. You felt honored that they'd be honest with you. And then you just wanted to help. You want to be there for them whenever way it could be. These usually are only friends, because we really haven't learned how to do this, a lot of us, in romantic relationships and our most important ones. But with these friends, we have these great mirrors, because a lot of us might have one good friend where we can share that stuff with, but we still don't. But when we actually really check in and say, if I share this with them, how would they actually respond? Most of the time, it's pretty positive. Not always, and be honest with yourself, right? I mean, I would check into that, because what you don't want to do is share something very vulnerable and then have it thrown back or used in your face, because that will really set you back. However, usually it's pretty clear. And all you have to do is go back in time and review your relationship and what they share with you and vice versa. So hopefully those three things really can help you. So this concept of fight and light, and looking at, are you on the fight side or the light side of each of those things? And are you able to choose love instead of fear, intention instead of illusion, gratitude instead of greed, going backward, right? And hope over hiding out, and transparency over temptation. When you're able to start making those decisions, your life can really change. And when you also realize at the same time you're not alone, and your suffering is shared, and when you start sharing the connection and suffering and being truthful about it, then all these beautiful things can happen, and connections can be made that really free you. And all of a sudden, this goal or intention of becoming sober can become a reality because you're changing energy around it. And then your story, and then looking at how this all plays in your story. What's your story? How's your story keeping you going back to fight instead of light? And really noticing that, and just kindly and compassionately with love, bringing it to your intent, bringing it to your self-awareness, your awareness. Because sometimes all you have to do is start being aware of things to change it. I guarantee you have examples in your life where the moment you saw you were doing something, you're like, well, I'm never doing that again. And maybe you didn't, because once you saw it, it was such a powerful experience, you're like, wow, I have a choice I can make. I don't have to make that choice again. So hopefully this offers some message of hope and inspiration. I would love anyone to share in the comments below anything, questions, comments, feedback, whatever it is. If you're really into it, I'd love to hear it. And I just am so grateful again for this opportunity to share this with you. I'm going to come back with another video offering more, but hopefully this content can really help you start making some change and move that dial. And again, I'm just thrilled and honored you took the time to listen to this. Thanks.